There is an unseen war being waged this very moment, not in the news headlines or on your phone screen, but in the most sacred space of your existence, inside your marriage, between the sheets of your intimacy, in the words you whisper, in the "da." What if I told you that the argument that erupted from nothing last night, that sudden coldness that washed over your partner, or this strange feeling that something has shifted between you, isn't just a rough patch, but the signature of something far more sinister operating in the shadows of your relationship, while you search for logical explanations for what you're feeling? Forces you can't imagine are weaving invisible threads around your marital happiness. The question that will haunt you is simple, yet devastating. How do you distinguish between the normal challenges of a relationship and the deliberate action of entities that feed on the destruction of human love? Because there is a difference that could either save or condemn everything you've built with the one you love. Right now, millions of couples worldwide are experiencing exactly what you are, unaware that they are being manipulated by an intelligence that knows every weak point of human nature, every emotional fissure, every moment of intimate vulnerability. Have you ever noticed how certain fights seem to materialize out of thin air, as if a third presence entered the room and planted seeds of discord where only love existed before? Or how your sex life, that sacred territory where two souls meet, suddenly become an emotional minefield, filled with unexplainable discomfort, mysterious blockages, and a growing sense of being watched by eyes that shouldn't be there? These are not coincidences, nor are they symptoms of relationships that have naturally cooled off. They are the footprints left by uninvited visitors who found an open door into your home. What you are about to discover will forever change the way you see your marriage, your intimacy, and the moments of crisis that seemed inexplicable. Because when you learn to recognize the signs, when you understand the hidden patterns behind seemingly normal conflicts, when you finally see the invisible strings being pulled, that is when your true journey of protection and restoration begins. If you feel that something isn't right, if an inner voice is telling you there's more than you can see, you are correct, and the time to act is now. Subscribe to this channel immediately, because this might be the last conversation you need to have before you take back control of your married life. Narrative development. Look, Owen Ethers. A truth about marriage that nobody has told you, something relationship magazines will never admit, that traditional therapists cannot diagnose, and that your own family prefers to ignore. It's about the spiritual vulnerability created when two people become one flesh, when their emotional defenses dissolve and they become a unified portal to dimensions that exist beyond what your eyes can see. In that moment of total fusion, when your souls intertwine in the deepest intimacy, you are not just exchanging caresses or whispers of love, you are creating an energetic frequency so intense, so pure, that it draws attention from realms where light and darkness battle for supremacy. The enemy of your happiness has known this secret for millennia. He knows that the marital union is not just a social contract or a romantic choice. It is a terrestrial reflection of a divine mystery, a living representation of the love between Christ and His church. For this reason, your marriage becomes a primary target, a territory to be conquered, a fortress to be infiltrated. Every moment of genuine intimacy between you is an act of resistance against chaos. Every gesture of mutual forgiveness is a declaration of war against division. Every night you fall asleep in each other's arms is a victory that must be sabotaged. Think about the last few weeks of your marital life and observe the patterns, that irritation that flares up from nowhere just as you're about to share a special moment, that sharp word that escapes your mouth precisely when your partner needs understanding the most, the sexual desire that mysteriously vanishes at the very moments you finally have the time and privacy to connect, the insomnia that keeps you both awake, side by side in bed, but emotionally separated by a chasm that feels impassable. These are not cosmic accidents or marital bad luck. They are calculated, precise, surgical interventions. A war is being waged for your ability to love and be loved fully, and in this war, your own mind becomes the main battlefield. Thoughts that are not your own begin to be planted, doubts about your partner's faithfulness, comparisons to other relationships, memories of ex-partners that resurface at the most inopportune times, fantasies that divide instead of unite. Start to question if you truly know the person beside you, if they really love you as they say they do, if this relationship is worth all the effort you've been investing. And the most disturbing part of it all is how these attacks intensify precisely when you are growing spiritually together, when you decide to pray more as a couple, when you begin attending church more regularly, when you make plans that honor God. It's as if an unseen force detects your approach to the sacred and activates more aggressive sabotage protocols. Because for the darkness, a couple walking together toward the light isn't just a threat, it's a living declaration that God's love is real, attainable, and transformative. The Bible gives us a clear warning about the nature of this fight. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3 and 4, we are told, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds." And where do you think these battles manifest most intensely in your daily life? It's not just in grand crises or monumental decisions, it's the small daily gestures that build or destroy a marriage. It's in how you respond when your spouse is vulnerable, the patience you have or lose when they are going through a hard time, your ability to choose love even when your feelings are in turmoil. Notice how spiritual attacks in a marriage follow a specific pattern. They always target the fundamental pillars that sustain a solid union. First, they assault communication. You begin to misunderstand each other with a strange frequency, as if your words leave your mouth and arrive in your partner's ears completely distorted. Simple phrases become emotional minefields. "Hey, how was your day?" sounds like an accusation. And "I'm tired" is interpreted as rejection. A thoughtful silence becomes calculated coldness. It's as if a malicious translator is intercepting all communication between you, turning every attempt at connection into an opportunity for division. Next, the target shifts to trust, the invisible foundation upon which all intimacy is built. Doubts that didn't exist before begin to appear, suspicions that have no basis in concrete facts but grow like weeds in your mind. You find yourself analyzing every gesture, every word, every facial expression of your partner, searching for signs of betrayal or disaffection that may not even be there. A text message on their phone that was once irrelevant now sparks your curiosity. A delay in returning your call becomes grounds for an internal interrogation. A smile to a stranger on the street becomes evidence that maybe you are no longer enough. Physical intimacy also becomes a subtle but devastating battlefield. It's not just about the absence of desire, it's about how this sacred territory transforms into a source of anxiety, inadequacy, and disconnection. You can be physically together, but emotionally, each of you remains locked on your own island of insecurities. Unexplained blockages arise, discomforts that didn't exist before, a sense of being watched even in the privacy of your bedroom. Spontaneity gives way to performance. Genuine connection is replaced by a mechanical obligation. And what should be a celebration of love becomes yet another source of mutual frustration. And perhaps the cruelest attack of all is how they manage to make you feel alone, even when you are together. You can be side by side on the sofa, yet the emotional distance feels insurmountable. You can have slept in the same bed for years, yet wake up feeling like a stranger. You can be living in the same house, sharing the same responsibilities, but carrying a weight of loneliness that seems to grow each day. Because the goal isn't just to destroy your marriage, it's to make you give up on the very idea that true love is possible, that what God has joined together is worth fighting for. Now, let's get to what truly matters: how to identify when you aren't just going through a difficult phase, but are being systematically attacked spiritually. There is a subtle but crucial difference between the natural conflicts of any relationship and the calculated assaults of malevolent spiritual forces. Normal conflicts have an origin, a development, and a resolution. They arise from real differences, can be discussed rationally, and with goodwill from both sides, find paths to a solution. Spiritual attacks, however, are characterized by an almost surreal quality of irrationality, an ability to escalate disproportionately, and a strange resistance to any attempt at peaceful resolution. One of the most telling signs is the timing of the conflicts. Observe if the most intense fights always happen at moments when you are closest to God, before going to church, after a joint prayer, during periods of fasting, or when you decide to seek pastoral counseling. It's as if an unseen force detects your spiritual approach and activates sabotage protocols. You could be living days of total harmony, planning a future together, daydreaming about the projects you'll achieve as a couple, and suddenly, an argument explodes without warning, turning all that peace into an emotional war zone that seems to last an eternity. Another powerful indicator is the presence of intrusive thoughts that don't seem to come from you. You know, that inner voice that whispers things like, he doesn't really love you, she's lying to you, you deserve better, this marriage was a mistake from the start. These thoughts arrive with a strange force, a conviction that has no basis in reality, but that manages to shake your deepest certainties. They appear at the very moments you are most vulnerable, when you're tired, stressed, or going through a personal difficulty. And the most disturbing thing is how these thoughts seem to know your exact weak points, your most intimate insecurities, your most secret fears about relationships. The atmosphere of the house also changes perceptibly when negative spiritual forces take root. There's a heaviness in the air that can't be explained by external factors. You can clean the house, organize everything, but a feeling of oppression remains, as if the environment itself is permeated with a dense, uncomfortable energy. Children, if you have them, begin to exhibit strange behaviors, frequent nightmares, an unexplainable fear of certain areas of the house, a reluctance to be alone. Pets also pick up on these presences and may show agitation, bark at nothing, or avoid certain rooms for no apparent reason. And then there are the physical signs that accompany these spiritual attacks. Headaches that arise always during important conversations about the relationship, insomnia that strikes precisely when you most need to rest together, strange sensations during intimacy, like you are being watched, a sudden chill in the room, or an inexplicable discomfort that interrupts moments that should be of deep connection, recurring nightmares involving betrayal, separation, or the loss of your partner, waking up in the middle of the night with an overwhelming anxiety about the future of your relationship, with no concrete reason for this concern. These are more than symptoms of stress. They are physical manifestations of a spiritual war being waged in the most sacred territory of your life. Let me share a truth with you that few religious leaders have the courage to address directly. There is a deep and dangerous connection between a couple's sex life and the spiritual vulnerability of a home. When God created physical intimacy between a man and a woman, He wasn't just establishing a mechanism for reproduction or a form of pleasure. He was creating a sacred gateway where two souls meet at the deepest possible level, where emotional and spiritual barriers completely dissolved, where the very essence of who you are merges in a transcendent experience. And this is precisely why this territory becomes the preferred target of forces that seek to corrupt, divide, and destroy. Think about it. During the intimate act, you are in your most vulnerable state, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. All your defenses are down. All your attention is focused on each other. Your entire being is open and receptive. In this moment of total vulnerability, any spiritual energy present in the environment, be it positive or negative, has direct access to the deepest layers of your consciousness. This is why couples living in spiritual harmony experience an intimacy that transcends the physical, that leaves them more connected, more strengthened, more united with each encounter. But it is also why couples under spiritual attack begin to experience blockages, discomforts, and a growing sense of wrongness during these moments. Have you ever noticed how certain memories of past relationships resurface exactly during your moments of intimacy with your spouse? How the faces of ex-partners appear in your mind without warning, fragmenting your ability to be fully present with the one you love? How fantasies that have nothing to do with your current partner invade your thoughts just when you should be most connected? This is not normal, it is not healthy, and it is definitely not accidental. These are deliberate invasions from a force that knows the destructive power of comparison, distraction, and emotional fragmentation during the most sacred moments of a marriage. There is also an even darker dimension that must be mentioned: the way malevolent spiritual entities can literally feed on human sexual energy. In ancient texts, we read of entities that specialize in corrupting human sexuality, but the modern reality of this manifestation is much more subtle and devastating. We aren't talking about dramatic apparitions or cinematic possessions. We are talking about a parasitic presence that attaches itself to the couple's intimacy, siphoning the vital energy that should nourish and strengthen the union, leaving both partners drained, frustrated, and progressively more distant from each other after each intimate encounter. The practical result is devastating. What should be a source of union becomes a source of division. What should energize the relationship begins to drain its strength. What should be the exclusive territory of the couple becomes a space invaded by uninvited presences. You may be physically together, but spiritually, each one remains isolated, as if an invisible barrier prevents the true fusion of souls that God designed for marriage. And gradually, without realizing it, You begin to avoid intimacy, not for lack of love, but because you subconsciously feel that something is wrong, that this territory is no longer safe, that these moments that should be of celebration have turned into a source of inexplicable anxiety. But now we arrive at the turning point, the moment when you stop being a passive victim and become an active warrior in the battle for your union. Because the liberating truth is this: you do not have to passively accept these attacks. You are not condemned to live a marriage under constant spiritual harassment. And there is an authority given by God that is greater than any force of darkness that may be operating against your family. In Luke chapter 10 verse 19, Jesus declares, "Behold, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you." This is not a poetic suggestion, a commission for war, a declaration that you have the power to evict any invader from the sacred territory of your home. The first weapon in your spiritual battle is the conscious recognition that you are in a war. Stop trying to solve spiritual problems with only emotional tools. That argument that started over dirty dishes may have roots far deeper than domestic issues. That coldness that has come between you might be a symptom of an interference from dimensions your eyes cannot see. When you begin to spiritually discern the conflicts in your marriage, when you stop accepting all this unexplainable emotional turmoil as normal, when you decide to investigate the true origins of destructive patterns, that's when you move from defense to offense. Prayer together becomes your heavy artillery against any force trying to establish itself in your home. I'm not talking about mechanical prayers or generic requests for blessings. I'm talking about warfare prayer, specific intercession, direct declarations against every work of darkness operating against your union. When you kneel together and declare aloud that your home belongs to the Lord, that your marriage is under the protection of the blood of Jesus, that every malevolent entity must leave in the name of Christ, you are exercising a spiritual authority that makes principalities and powers retreat, because two people united in prayer are not just two people added together. They are an exponentially multiplied force that moves mountains and shatters strongholds. The Word of God becomes your two-edged sword to cut the invisible cords that may be binding your relationship. The entirety of Psalm 91 should be declared over your home regularly. Ephesians 6 needs to be read aloud whenever you feel you are entering a period of intense conflict. John chapter 10, verse 10 must be memorized. The thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. When you fill the atmosphere of your home with the proclaimed word, when you make the scriptures a constant presence in your daily life, you are establishing a spiritual frequency that automatically expels everything that cannot coexist with the holiness of God. And there is a practical dimension that cannot be ignored: the spiritual cleansing of the physical environment where you live. Objects that carry memories of past relationships have no place in your current home. Gifts from ex-boyfriends or ex-girlfriends, photographs from eras before your marriage, mementos that emotionally connect you to people who have left your lives. All of this can serve as a bridge for unwanted spiritual influences, books, movies, music, or any content that glorifies infidelity, promotes division between couples, or sexualizes relationships outside of marriage must be removed from your environment. You cannot be praying for spiritual protection at night while feeding portals of contamination during the day. Coherence between your spiritual life and your practical choices is essential to keep your territory clean and protected. There is a secret that spiritually mature couples discover, but which is rarely taught. Anointed physical intimacy becomes one of the most powerful forms of prayer and spiritual warfare a couple can experience. When a husband and wife unite physically under the proper spiritual covering, when they pray before giving themselves to each other, when they consecrate that moment to the Lord and ask for His protection over the entire experience, something supernatural happens. That union transcends the merely physical and becomes a prophetic declaration about the kingdom of God, an earthly manifestation of the mystery between Christ and His church, a celebration so powerful that darkness cannot stand its presence. But to reach this level of sacred intimacy, you must first expel all contamination that may be polluting this territory. This means renouncing aloud every past sexual relationship, breaking every soul tie formed with previous partners, and canceling every spiritual bond created through intimacy with people who are no longer part of your lives. When the Bible establishes the principle in Mark chapter 10, verse 8, that ... the two shall become one flesh, So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. It is revealing a profound spiritual truth. The physical union is designed to create a singular, holy bond. Past bonds must be consciously broken for your current intimacy to be truly exclusive and protected. Restoring sacred intimacy also requires a shift in how you view your time together. Stop seeing sex as a physical need to be met or a marital duty to be fulfilled, and start seeing it as a living sacrament, a moment of shared worship, an opportunity to experience a piece of heaven on earth. When you approach each other with this reverence, when you recognize that you are about to partake in something that goes far beyond physical pleasure, when you invite the presence of God to dwell in the midst of your intimacy, every malevolent entity that might be trying to feed on that energy is automatically expelled by the holiness of the moment. Joint fasting becomes a powerful tool to break any spiritual stronghold that is resisting your restoration efforts. When you decide to abstain from food together, seeking God's face specifically for the healing and protection of your marriage, you are sending a clear message to the spiritual world. This relationship is an absolute priority. You are willing to make sacrifices for its preservation, and you will not give up until all opposition is defeated. During these periods of fasting, declare your authority aloud over every work of darkness. Renounce every destructive pattern repeating in your relationship, and ask God to reveal any area where you might be giving legal ground to spiritual attacks. And finally, understand that this battle is not fought once, but is a lifestyle, a constant vigilance, a permanent posture of spiritual warfare, a daily commitment to protect and nurture what God has joined together. Every morning, before leaving the house, pray together for the protection of your marriage. Every night, before sleeping, give thanks for the day's victories and surrender to the Lord any area that still needs healing. When you feel an argument is about to escalate beyond normal, stop immediately and pray together, expelling any spiritual interference before continuing the conversation. Because a truly free marriage is not one that never faces attacks, it's one that knows how to win every battle, that grows stronger with each overcome conflict, that becomes such a well-established spiritual fortress that darkness itself begins to avoid that territory. As you have watched this video, something has changed within you. A curtain has been opened. A light has been switched on in rooms of your conscience that had long remained in the dark. Perhaps you recognized your own story in the words that were spoken. Perhaps you felt a shiver of confirmation when certain patterns were exposed. Or perhaps a strange peace invaded your chest as you realized that someone has finally put a name to what you have been feeling but couldn't explain. This sensation you are experiencing now is not a coincidence, is the Holy Spirit confirming truths your soul already knew, but that your mind was still processing. And now that you have seen, you can no longer pretend you haven't. Now that you know, you can no longer live as if you don't. The journey you are about to begin or continue with new awareness will not be easy, but it will be the most important one of your married life, because there is an abyssal difference between couples who live at the mercy of spiritual circumstances they don't understand, and couples who assume authority over the sacred territory of their home. There is a before and an after when you stop being a passive victim of attacks you didn't even know you were suffering and become an active warrior protecting what you love most. Your home can become a territory so well protected spiritually that it becomes a refuge for other couples who are still learning to fight. Your marriage can become a living testimony that God's love is real, attainable, and stronger than any force of darkness. There are couples watching this video right now who are on the brink of a separation that seemed inevitable, but have just discovered that maybe it's not about incompatibility. Maybe it's about a war they didn't even know they were fighting. There are people who were about to give up on love, convinced they were born to be alone, but who now understand they were always prime targets because they carry within them the capacity to love with an intensity that threatens the enemy's plans. And there are relationships that seemed dead, buried under years of hurt and misunderstanding, that can be resurrected when the true cause of death is identified and fought with the right weapons. What you do with this revelation from now on will determine not only the future of your marriage, but the spiritual legacy you will leave for generations to come. If this content has awakened something in you, if it has confirmed suspicions you carried, if it has brought hope where there was only resignation, then you need to join this community of couples who have decided to fight for what is theirs by divine right. Like this video if it touched your heart, share it with other couples who may be experiencing the same silent battles. Leave a comment telling us how these truths connected with your personal story, and subscribe to this channel, because your journey of marital restoration is just beginning. Here you will find not just diagnoses, but solutions, not just problems exposed, but victories shared, not just war, but the peace that comes after every battle won in the name of true love.